Hello again. I had a request on from one of the folks that downloaded the Filament Loader. They have an Ender 3 Pro Max, and I don't have one myself. I have the Ender 3 V2, but I believe everything mounts the same. So he had asked if I could show him how it actually mounts on the standard Bowden tube setup. My Ender 3 has a direct drive, so I'm going to just pull it out of the way or pull my cable chains out of the way and just mount the unit on the on my Ender 3. But I also I use the dual gear drive unit like this one on all my printers. So it's a little fatter. The one I'm going to show you the installation of is actually the Creality's native aluminum extruder. It's not as fat, and it has a little bit different mounting lugs. So because of that, I have to find out if this person is going to be using the dual gear or the wider one or the standard Creality, but the mounting of it and the location of it's the same. It's just a matter of which extruder. In which case, I probably will have to add one more variant of this right hand where the swing arm is located, because typically the dual gear unit has a different mounting system and it's in a different orientation. So the obviously I have to mimic this one in this orientation, which I haven't done yet, but easy enough to do, just to allow it to mount the correct model. So anyway, the important thing is this bracket. This is an offset bracket that moves the whole extruder back 40 millimeters towards away from the front of the machine, because this cutout you see right here is where the Z-rod is, that the extruder normally sits right in front of it, and the filament comes in right next to the Z-rod. And if you have a filament runout sensor, that usually mounts right next to it as well. You won't need that. It's going to move the extruder back a full 40 millimeters to this hole here, and then the extruder or the filament loader is going to sit right here, far away from the Z-rod, and that's obviously the other reason why I reversed it, because otherwise this part of the mechanism would be right up tight to the Z-rod, and we don't want that. So anyway, I'm just going to quickly assemble this on camera, and then I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to go over to my Ender, and I'll mount it on the Ender so you can see how it fits, the clearances. I think the other issue is this gentleman has it in an enclosure and is worried about it sticking out too far, which is also part of the reason I came up with version 2 over version 1, because of the depth. Anyway, so I'm just going to stop talking and get this guy mounted up. Actually, before I mount this on the unit, I'm going to go ahead and mount the filament loader. So the easiest way this one mounts, it only, because it has this little arm underneath, you can just wiggle the piece of Bowden tubing, which I cover in the other videos on how to cut that to the right length, and it just slides or swings into position. And then, unlike or similar but a little different than this model, I'm sorry, this is one for the Creality in the other direction. Unlike the dual gear drive unit, it has the a different lug on it that has 2 screws. This one only has a single. And that keeps it in place, can't move, it's good to go. So now I'm just going to mount the rest of the extruder arm. Okay, last but not least is the spring tensioner. And if you want to put your knob on, you can. So there's the filament loader all ready to go. The only thing left to do is just to take 4 short screws and nuts and put them through the holes where the extruder used to mount. And I'm just going to put 2 in for now, because obviously I don't need to show you guys how to mount the or put screws in. But give me a minute. I'm going to take the video. I'm going to reset the camera up over by the ender, and see you in a minute. Hello, I'm back. So a little earlier in the video, I was assembling the filament loader on a Creality ender or Creality extruder, an aluminum extruder, and one of the gentlemen that was on the that purchased the unit off Colts asked how it would mount on an ender series. He said he had a ender Max or a Pro Max, and I believe it does mount the same as a regular ender. So I'm just going to go ahead. I pulled my cable chains out of the way because I have my setup for a direct drive. And as you can see, there's one of the filament loaders there, but the swing arm is in the other orientation. Oh, I'm sorry, I just got the flash to turn on. Anyway, so just so you understand how this model is going to operate and the clearances of it, this is what we mounted up earlier. And this is going to mount up underneath the existing factory bracket for where the ender has its extruder mounted. So it's going to be a little tricky for me to balance everything while I'm in here putting it on, but I'm going to see if I can get this installed for you. I'm not going to put all the screws in just because I'm only doing this for demonstration purposes. But let me see if I can get this guy mounted for you, as I figure out where my other screw got to. Just put one of these screws down in here. And I have a nut in this little nut driver. I'm going to see if I can get it up into position. Sorry, I'm balancing this all while trying to keep the camera in focus. There we go. So obviously you can put the other 4 or 3 bolts in, but that gives you the orientation. I'll put one more in just so it doesn't move around on us. Actually, I'll just drop it in there for purposes of this demonstration. Given what I've just realized with getting these screws into the holes and getting nuts underneath, I think I'm going to re-engineer this plate to have captive nuts in it, so you don't have to go through this every time you go to mount it up. So anyway, there's the orientation of how it sits. And one of the big things that I wanted to point out that I had questions about is, would it fit in an enclosure? Well, as you can see, if we look down the wall, the filament loader doesn't stick out as far as the gantry stepper motor, so it definitely will fit in an enclosure. Obviously, the filament's going to have to come through here, but it could come through your enclosure wall. You just would have to reach through, like I'm reaching through the crane or the frame to, operate the loader. But there's no reason it won't fit in there. The only difference between the standard setup is it moves this whole extruder assembly just back 40 millimeters. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope that answers any questions on how it's going to fit. But I will make sure that the updated files with the captive nuts in the plate are on there. And if you do run the dual gear extruder like the one I'm using on my direct drive, I'm going to quickly add another file in the system, so anybody that's already downloaded can just download that file as well. But it'll be the this orientation swing arm, but with this mounting block. So anyway, hope you like it, and don't forget to subscribe.